as per usual, I have everything written down. It's this feeling when you're stuck, unable to get out of bed. It isn't the ADHD paralysis. In fact, it's this feeling when the overwhelming sense of I want to but can't make myself is slowly replaced with a swirling storm cloud of just indistinct, all-consuming sadness. When the weight of your bones turns you to stone and you feel yourself sinking lower and lower, drained of all of your usual bouncy and optimistic energy. It's this feeling when you start to accept that maybe it was never the ADHD. It's depression. Before we really get into the video, I just want to say that October is ADHD Awareness Month, so happy October! This is my contribution to discussing ADHD, raising awareness, and what the experience of being a neurodivergent person in a neurotypical world is like. So I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new for this ADHD Awareness Month. Hello, welcome. I feel a little bit awkward and don't really know what to do with my hands, so I have a soda here with me today, and we are joined by my ADHD creative mess pile over here. We got a couple of different projects I'm working on, and Boba Fett, because I don't know where to put them. Anyways, clearly I'm like a little bit uncomfortable and don't really know what to do with myself right now, and I'm trying really hard not to let perfectionist thinking get in the way of what I am attempting to do here today. I haven't introduced myself. If you don't know me, I'm Katie. I have done a lot of things on the internet, and I used to identify myself as a grad student because that is what I was until just a couple of months ago, and ever since then I don't know how to identify myself because I've been in academia for so long that trying to discover myself outside of that has been a whole nother project and a whole nother discussion for another point in time. But suffice it to say, my name is Katie and I have ADHD, which is primarily the important information that you need to know for the sake of this video. Today, like I said in the intro, that I want to talk about my experience with depression and ADHD because it's something that I just recently discovered about myself. And this is gonna sound a little bit silly, but no, I don't really know how I'm gonna talk about this. We are witnessing in real time my brain deciding how we're gonna move forward with this video. I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I actually really don't know what I'm doing. I've been increasingly not producing YouTube content, a little bit because I don't really know how to make content when I'm not making it about being a student. But the problem is I still have a lot to say. Like, I am a certified yapper, as the kids may say. So I still feel compelled to talk about things that are on my mind and to share them with an audience. And I think that where I want to do that right now is just kind of talking about the things that come to mind and feel fun and happy, and not trying to like force myself into some kind of rigid structure when it comes to YouTube and producing content. And none of that has anything to do with this video. Aside from the fact that this is something that has been on my mind and I've definitely talked my loved ones' ears off about it, and so I thought maybe I could start using YouTube as a bit of a creative outlet for all of the thoughts that I ruminate on or perseverate on, if you would like to learn a new vocabulary word today. And so the one I want to talk about first is ADHD and my depression, because it's something I've been going through recently. I have a bunch of notes here to talk about, but I have no guarantee that it's going to make any kind of linear sense. We're just kind of going with the flow. To start things off, I want to share that when I was diagnosed with ADHD, I was late diagnosed the summer that I turned 26, which was just about 3 years ago. So I've been diagnosed for quite a number of years, but in my opinion, what like not a significantly long time. I know people who have been diagnosed since childhood, so it's something that I'm still like newly contending with and trying to figure out what the shape of my ADHD is versus other things that I may be experiencing, because when I got diagnosed with ADHD, I still felt like something was wrong, to the point that I actually have ordered a sweatshirt that says diagnosed, but something still ain't right. And I think one of the reasons why something still felt wrong when I got diagnosed is because I wanted my ADHD diagnosis to so badly be the thing that I could point towards and say, that's what's wrong. Therefore, because it's this one thing and it has a label and we know what we don't really know what the mechanisms of ADHD are, but we know what like the symptoms are and people know coping strategies around them. That is the thing that is wrong with me, and because I can identify it and label it, I can fix it. And oh, how wrong I was. Not just in the fact that I thought that maybe I could fix my ADHD, because it's not really something that you can fix, and some would argue something that you shouldn't have to fix, but I digress. It also just didn't encapsulate everything that I was experiencing. And I'll be quite honest, having depression or like knowing that I have depression also still doesn't encapsulate everything that I experienced, but it's at least like a step in the right direction. After I got diagnosed with ADHD, I did start treating my ADHD with medication, and don't get me wrong, like my medication does so much and it helps a lot, but towards the end of my time in graduate school, I was still experiencing this really severe anxiety that I'm still not entirely sure exactly where it comes from. I think it comes from a variety of sources, and also just being a high-strung person and having ADHD and living in a world that's not conducive to having ADHD. All of the above. Traumatic childhood, neurodivergence, graduate school, like everything. And I went to my psychiatrist and I said I think I would like medication support for my anxiety. She asked me if I wanted a short-acting medication for things like panic attacks, or if I wanted an antidepressant that also treats anxiety for like everyday anxiety. And at the time I was experiencing this just like constant low-level anxiety that was present all the time, so I went with the antidepressants. And hear me out, I have tried antidepressants in the past before. Before I was taking medication for my ADHD, I was on antidepressants because at the time the psychiatrist I was working with wasn't convinced I had ADHD. He wanted to have a differential diagnosis and rule out all other things like a personality disorder or bipolar, etc. At that time, the specific medication I was on actually made things worse, and this time I tried a different medication, one that would help primarily target anxiety. But the catch is, taking this medication not only made my anxiety better, it also made the depressive episodes that I didn't really recognize were happening go away. There's a bird screaming outside. That took a couple of months, and I've always been a little wishy-washy about whether or not I take my ADHD medication for a variety of reasons that I don't think I'm going to get into in this video, but maybe I can talk about it in a future video. But I started taking my ADHD medication regularly, like every day, except for the days that I would forget, but and this combination of taking an antidepressant that actively helped me not feel depressed while taking an ADHD medication that helped me focus and concentrate and not run into like decision paralysis and executive dysfunction and task paralysis and all that kind of stuff, I suddenly realized that I felt like a normal, calm, cool, and collected human being for one of the first time in my life. Maybe not my life, but ever since I like came online and became conscious and aware of the fact that I was in fact a human having an existence, experiencing reality. In taking these medications in combination together on the ADHD side of things, I was able to concentrate, make decisions, get things done, have concentration, and be able to, motivate myself to actually work on the things I wanted to work on. It does not help with my memory problems, though. That is still something I struggle with and probably will struggle with forever. And then on the depression side of things, I wasn't feeling, that stuck feeling that I described in the beginning of the video. And that stuck feeling I used to attribute to my ADHD. I used to think it was decision paralysis, task paralysis, like the ADHD paralysis that people talk about. And I do still get that, but as I described in the intro, ADHD paralysis is very much an I want to, but for some reason I can't make myself get up and do it. On the depression side of things, it feels like my bones are so heavy and weary, and I feel the weight of my world on my shoulders, and there's a storm cloud inside my head, and everything is just dark and doom and gloom. So taking these medications together, I was no longer having these depressive episodes and also not experiencing ADHD paralysis, and I could just function like a human. So the question I have for myself is, why did it take me so long to get here? Like, why didn't I recognize sooner that I was, in fact, experiencing something else on top of my ADHD? Well, I think the first answer to that I just described is that sometimes they can be really similar, right? ADHD can cause things like unregulated energy and brain fog, a loss of interest in things because your interests cycle really quickly. Well, depression can also cause brain fog, a lack of energy, and a loss of interest in things, because that's one of the primary symptoms of having depression. So the experience of the two, while having some differences, were so extremely similar that because I had that ADHD diagnosis in my head, I kept blaming it on ADHD. And right here I want to pause and give a shout out to my husband, because for the last 10 years he's been telling me that I experience anxiety and depression, and I have not listened to him. It took a really long time and a lot of patience on his part for me to start listening to him and being able to see myself and my actions from an external perspective and point of view. And that's, something I'm really grateful for, and something I may recommend if you have friends and family who can observe your behavior outside of yourself. Maybe actually listen to them from time to time. Another thing I wanted to mention, I'm sorry, none of these thoughts are actually connected. Like I said, I don't have a linear path for this video. I'm really just talking. Another thing that helped me see how significantly better I'm doing now than I was even 3 to 4 years ago was I went back and I watched some of my old YouTube videos. I used to vlog my days in college, and then in graduate school after I graduated undergrad and went to go get my master's, and I was specifically looking at footage from when I was at UC Berkeley, and there's so many videos where I'm talking about how I'm feeling and talking about feeling down and sad and things are maybe a little bit pointless, and actively catching depressive episode on camera, and even to the extent where I was dissociating on camera and watching myself being unable to get out of bed, and just seeing how a younger version of myself was struggling so bad. And now, a 3 to 4 year old version of Katie feeling so much sympathy for that girl, but also so much frustration for that girl, because like I just said, there were so many people who were advocating for her to get better and for her to feel better, and that there was more to do and to attend to things than just ADHD. I think that maybe one of the reasons that I'm talking about this on camera now that I'm kind of talking through things is that I think it's really important for us to remember, us as in people with ADHD, people with neurodivergencies, people with a condition. It's important to also do our other homework. And that's a phrase that I use fairly often about this. I've said it before in grad school vlogs. Sure, my ADHD is still very much present and still very much a diagnosis because it causes impairment in my life, but also going to therapy and talking about the things that have happened in my life that are traumatic, and seeking out the other ways I can support myself, like antidepressants for my depression. I got so focused in on the idea of having ADHD that I was able to use that to kind of continue to be in denial about other mental health struggles that I was having. I don't love that for me. I don't love that for anybody. I'm trying to choose to look at this in a couple of different ways. The first one is simply that I am supporting my mental health by accepting that these are things that I experience and that there's something I can do about them to feel better. And also thinking about taking these steps to support my mental health as a way of treating and supporting my ADHD. Because of course I'm going to have ADHD paralysis when I'm having a depressive episode, because depressive episodes also cause that inability to get up and get moving. So like, yes, of course it makes my ADHD worse. Of course, when I am drained of energy because of depression, I'm not going to be able to focus and concentrate on things because I have no energy. It's going to make that part of my ADHD worse. Of course, when I'm sad and feel like life is pointless, it's going to make the emotional dysregulation of my ADHD worse. So I'm trying really hard right now to think about treating my depression, which is something that is still so stigmatized in our society, even though, I mean, the world sucks, so no wonder why so many people are depressed. I forgot what I was saying halfway through that thought, but the point is, I'm trying to be kind to myself, and I want to encourage everyone else to be kind to yourself, even if it means accepting some hard truths about ourselves and our mental health. Which brings me to one of the other notes that I wrote down in here, which is, why am I talking about this, right? Like, who am I to talk about this? I am not a mental health professional. I am just some girl, some agender person, agender entity experiencing human reality. And I wrote down that it feels important to talk about it, especially because I always felt like my depression has looked so different than what I'd seen in friends, what I'd seen on TV, what I'd seen in social media, because I am, and not tooting my own horn, a like high achieving, fairly successful person, right? Like, I've done well in school. And that is like the main measure of success that I'm using here. I got good grades in undergrad. I got good grades in my master's degree. I have a master's degree. I graduated with honors. So like, I was able to still force myself up and out of bed to go do my readings and do my homework and do my research and teach other kids and make friends and actively leave the house, despite the fact that I was feeling so awful and horrible all the time. When the version of depression that I've seen is the like self-isolation and pulling away from people and not engaging in your interests and things like that. And I always kind of brushed off the little interest in things because I've always been interested in school, and school has been, I hate to admit it, but I've described school as being like a type of escape for me because it's something I really truly love and enjoy, and it is socially acceptable to love and enjoy school, so I use that as like a way of coping. So I want to talk about this experience because it just like didn't look the same as other people's. Like, I still felt sad and I still had a hard time getting out of bed, but I didn't stay in bed as long or as much as other people I knew with depression, and I could blame ADHD on my inability to get up and out of bed. So I didn't feel justified in calling it depression, and I didn't think other people would maybe believe me if I called it depression because I was still able to get up and get going. So I want to talk about it so that other people see that depression can also look different. Yeah, it says I was still able to be and appear successful but was struggling underneath, with never feeling good enough. That's a really big one, was the fact that I just never felt good enough no matter what I did. Now I'm just kind of like, not concerned about it. I mean, I have the master's degree to prove that I was good enough to earn a master's degree, and in the past, that wouldn't have been enough to make me feel good enough. But, you know, now I just don't really worry about it. And another thing I wrote down in here was identity issues. Described this in my last video. I've described it a million times before, but for a long time, and there were some other external factors to this, but for a long time I used to describe my identity as being this amorphous thing that I like could never quite get a grasp on, and what I wanted to do was to like draw boundaries around it and like have a list of characteristics that made Katie Katie. And when I went to therapy, started treating my ADHD and started treating my depression, all of a sudden worrying about my identity also kind of went away. Not that I'd like figured all these things out, but that I just simply wasn't really worried about it anymore. Even in a time of like great upheaval, I was graduating from grad school, I was getting married, I was moving from the East Coast to the Midwest, like so much change was happening in my life, and when there's a lot of change and you go from like being prescribed an identity, student, to nothing, that's like the prime time to have an identity crisis. And at least I don't think I've had one, maybe like a tiny bit, but not in the way of like, oh my god, I don't know who I am or what I like or the things I want out of life and all this kind of stuff. I'm just like not bothered by it. I feel like I have the capacity to just kind of let it emerge on its own now. So, I mean, that one's probably like wrapped up in a couple of different things, but I do definitely think depression kind of robs you of an identity. I also wrote down in here, and I think all of my high-achieving girlies will get this one or resonate with it. I pushed myself so hard through what was happening, which I just kind of described and how I was able to like fly under the radar because of that. But I want to talk about it and openly admit to it because I also don't want my audience to think that what I was doing was healthy. I'm not going to say that it was necessarily unhealthy because I still really love school, even though it is stressful, but I think the not treating my mental health while I was going through school is not a healthy thing to do. So I'm not saying that going to graduate school and pushing yourself to do well is necessarily an unhealthy thing, but doing it without the support that I needed to be mentally healthy is a bad thing. Man, I wrote a lot of stuff here. The next section that I wrote down is where I'm at now with it all and how I feel. And I didn't actually write anything down, except for I think that I did kind of explain where I'm at now with it all and how I feel at the beginning of this, because as I said, I, for the first time, feel like a calm, collected human being. I still struggle with time management and time blindness. I still struggle with feeling overwhelmed by my ideas. I still struggle with organization and trying to figure out what idea to tackle and how to tackle it. Don't get me wrong. All of that is still very much present. All of that is still very much my ADHD, but I don't feel that extra weight on my shoulders and the just weariness that made me want to give up on everything. Because see, with ADHD, even though it is a frustrating experience, I can still work towards what I want. But with the depression, I could not. And so I started to give up, which is why my camera battery is dying, stopped making YouTube videos.
The next day.
Okay, hello and welcome to my bedroom. I realized I was rambling and being very repetitive yesterday, and so I cut myself off when my camera battery died, and we are back today. I have in fact purchased a new battery pack, so hopefully filming videos goes a little bit more smoothly in the future. However, as a part of this whole kind of thing I'm going through right now, which I know is not the topic of this video, I am trying to be a little bit more flexible with myself in how I film videos and the who, where, what, when, and why of filming videos. And so I just wanted to, take an opportunity to kind of wrap up the video, wrap up some thoughts, and send you guys on your way because I'm sure I have talked plenty in this video already. One of the very last things I wanted to talk a little bit about was the idea of masking. If you don't know what masking is, it is basically the covering up of or the compensating for neurodivergent traits in order to appear normal, essentially, or in order to perform at the standards and expectations of a neurotypical world. So for me, masking looks like hiding my stims and my movements, my energetic self, and especially trying to quiet the energy that I have because I think it can come across quite childish, and I don't love the idea of being seen as childish, especially because I'm a woman. And I also have to really kind of expend a lot of energy pushing myself harder to remember things and to get things done in the way that people are expecting me to, and all of that is a part of masking. When it comes to depression, I mean, the world that we live in is not particularly kind to people who are experiencing a reality that is anything different from what capitalism demands of us, which is to just continually produce. So depression makes it really difficult to continually produce. Part of what I think contributed to a really big burnout that I experienced, which if you're interested in the idea of neurodivergent burnout, please let me know, and I would happily make another video about that, I think. I lost my train of thought. Masking. I think that depression requires a level of masking, right? It's the experience that people describe with depression of like appearing happy on the outside, even if you're not happy on the inside, right? So all of that compounds and just kind of makes it a miserable experience. But part of what I am trying to do in this journey of understanding myself and being medicated and opening up a little bit more on YouTube and being a little bit less structured now that I'm not in school anymore is to start unmasking a little bit. And so sitting here and filming this video today is a part of that, because in the past I would have had this like really rigid idea of what filming should look like, and that I have everything set up and then I film it in one go in one day and then I edit it the next day and it's like ready for a weekly video. But I'm trying to go with the flow a little bit more, let myself film over multiple days if I need to, even if it makes the video, at least in my opinion, feel a little bit disjointed and non-linear, which I know I've already said, but I'm really just trying to let myself be myself right now. So yeah, I'm trying to be playful with it now, and that's made a lot easier by not having such a low self-esteem because of my depression. So yeah, also forgive me for using the phone microphone. My husband is outside doing outside chores, the washing machine is going, there's somebody blasting music, so I really just need to get a microphone, but it is not in the financial cards for me at this exact moment. But if you'd like to help me out with that, I do have a Ko-fi link in the description. No hard feelings if not, but that is something that I would love to upgrade for to make more videos. Yeah, so I think that that's everything that I have to say. I mean, I always have more to say at the end of YouTube videos, but I do have to eventually cut myself off. So I'm going to stop here. Stay tuned for more who knows what, because I'm really just trying to have fun with YouTube right now. So whether or not the next video is about ADHD, mental health, post-grad life, fashion studies, the world may never know, or at least that's for you to find out. So thank you so much for watching this video. Leave me a comment below. I really love getting the chance to chat with you guys about anything and everything. Let me know if this video resonated with you in any way. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!